You're listening to Online Pet Health Podcasts with Dr. Megan Kelly. Continuing education for veterinarian rehabilitation therapists. Learn more at onlinepethealth.com.
Hey Vet Rehabbers, you're listening to the Veterinary Rehabilitation Podcast, and I'm your host, Dr. Megan Kelly. And today I am joined by Kallum with a K, Russel. He is the CEO of Acorn Enterprises, and they have an organization basically that are supporting entrepreneurs in the UK. And I'm so excited to chat to him. Thanks, Kallum, for joining me.
Thanks, Meg, and it's really great to be here. If I may tell you a little bit about Acorn and the work we do, if I can be selfish enough. So about 7 years ago, my business partner Jerry and I got together, and we felt there was a need for a more structured, intensive, and I guess entrepreneurial-led support for entrepreneurs, and that's where Acorn Enterprise was formed. And since we started, we've worked with over 100 startups, and now we're really working in the university and college space. As you see, in the UK, we're now looking to go global, and a lot of what we do is running incubators. So those are in person, 5 months typically. We work with business owners to develop their clarity, their connections, their business skills, and their confidence, which is what we're going to be talking about today.
Yeah, and it's such a great topic because I think, you know, it doesn't matter what business and what profession you're in. I think confidence is a thing that all of us at some time have struggled with. And I wonder whether, like, as a professional sort of medical type of person, so like treating animals or treating people, if it's something that is really, really prevalent. Because, I mean, if I think back to the days when I qualified as a vet, you know, you think that with 6 years of study, having studied, and you think, when you qualify, you know everything, which you know nothing when you realize only after a while. But you'd think with all that study that you would come into practice and actually feel confident enough to be able to treat the patients and to talk to clients. But it was completely the opposite. And I think for me, I mean, I'm a confident person. So like I am an extrovert. I can go into a room and I'll chat to people. And I remember qualifying as a vet and just really, really, really just doubting myself about everything I thought I knew and realizing I know nothing. And I can remember actually like the first 3 weeks just thinking, I'm actually going to change professions. I don't think that I can carry on with this horrendous feeling of just feeling like I don't know what I'm doing. Like it was really, really bad. So, I mean, is this something that is common in all professions, or is it worse in certain different types of professions? I mean, what's your experience?
Yeah, it's a great, good first question. I think that most people do struggle with that. It's, of course, very individual, and everyone experiences things so differently. But I think most people would lie if they didn't feel at least some elements of that. And I think everyone is an amateur, and I don't mean that in a derogatory way. I just mean everyone starts off at a certain base level, and when you're surrounded by other people who are seemingly, on the surface anyway, so many steps ahead of you, it's almost like, well, I can never do that. That will never be me. They must have some sort of secret sauce or some superpower I just don't have access to. So I think it's very individual. I think it depends on the person for sure. I think everyone probably has a little bit of that.
Do you think it's a type of personality? So like, I mean, I'm an A-type personality. So
Yeah.
I like to be like on top of everything, and I like everything to be perfect.
Sure.
So maybe it's certain types of personalities are more likely to lack confidence because they have this sort of bar that is so high.
It's really interesting. I think, so much of the media and the rhetoric focuses on extrovert entrepreneurs. Like, you have to be this outgoing, crazy person to be a successful business person. And that's just nonsense. I think, some of the world's leading entrepreneurs, the ones we hear about in the papers, and even the ones locally, which to us are more relatable, are introverts. And I myself, I always thought I was an extrovert, a bit like you, but actually in recent years, I've learned I'm quite introvert too. Like, I'm like reflecting, I like quiet time by myself, I like reading books on my own. So I'm almost like a bit of both. So I think I can relate to most folk, because there's sometimes where, like you were saying there, I would love to walk into a room and speak to everyone. And then maybe the next day I walk in and couldn't even face it, speaking to anyone. So it's quite interesting. I'm going to pick apart, how do I overcome when it's part two of that, how do I overcome that when I'm not feeling it?
Yeah, so I think in different times in your life and different
Yeah,
days, like it depends on how you're feeling. Like
exactly.
some days you're confident and some days you aren't. And I mean, I definitely can say that's also happened to me,
Yeah.
and maybe because I've had some encouragement or something's happened in my life, on that day that
Yes.
has encouraged me. It's made me feel like, oh wow, like I got this now, and then the confidence is there. And then you have a bad day where something, happens and you get rejected, or something negative happens and then you're feeling all negative, and then the confidence levels change, right?
I think you're absolutely right. The important thing to remember is it's an emotion. It's a fluid, dynamic thing. It's almost like you can't necessarily store it. We're all human, so things affect us personally and in business, and they of course blend into and bleed into each other.
Yeah, I mean, I just think about like that personal stuff. As a
Yeah.
business owner, you really have to be able to separate that. I mean, how do you do that? How do you separate things that happen personally in your life from your business, and how you act when you're at your work?
Yeah, I mean, as I'm sure you can relate to, it's not always possible. So sometimes your personal life does just bleed into your business life, and that's just virtue of being a human being. Sometimes you just can't help that. But if you've got a really important client meeting or a really important pressing deadline where something has to be done and something goes off negatively in your personal life that affects you, there are a few strategies. One of them is remembering what you want to achieve. That's both at a very sort of immediate level. So, what do you want to achieve in this meeting or with this client or by the end of the week? And then looking at further ahead in terms of like your 5-10 year plan, does it fit into that? So, it's almost like taking a step back, pausing, and remembering why you're doing what you're doing is one strategy. Another one is just getting on with it, and that's really putting it bluntly. Just it's easy for me to sit here and say in a microphone that just get on with it. But sometimes you just have to put a big face, a brave face, I should say, and just get on with it. And there's just no two ways about it. And a third strategy, I guess, is to visualize what the outcome looks like. So go through it in your mind. And to do that, you can even look at past victories, like you were saying earlier, focus on the really good stuff and almost channel the good to almost overshadow the negative in your personal life or even business life. So there's sort of 3 practical strategies there.
Yeah, I love that. It's like really just focus in actually what you're trying to achieve. So just go into some little place and like say,
exactly.
this is what I need to do. So
Yeah.
let's chat about, I mean, like what confidence looks like in business in compared to somebody who's not confident.
Yeah. So if we're looking at one word to sum up, it's certainty. For me, it's certainty. And I have developed a little confidence formula, so I'm going to share with you. And of course, being Kallum with a K, I spell confidence with a K as well.
Yeah.
And my formula's got 3 parts. It's really a triangle. So at the very top of the triangle, you have clarity, which I just picked on a second ago. And then on the bottom left corner, why not? Let's have conviction. And then the third piece of the puzzle or the triangle is competence. So it's the confidence formula is made up of clarity, conviction, and competence. And if I drill down a bit into that, I can explain what confidence looks like in business. But ultimately, it's certainty. It's about you are getting paid a fair amount for a fair exchange of work. You feel that it's a good, fair exchange. You don't feel like you're cheating anyone, and equally, you don't feel like you're being cheated. You can make decisions with certainty, with confidence. You're not indecisive. You're not, come back to me tomorrow. When you make a decision, try that again. When you make a decision, you stick to it.
Yeah.
And things just flow. It's like a natural, you always feel it. It's like everything just flows. And that's not some wishy-washy type thing. It's more like you have certainty that in what you're doing, and that positive energy feeds into your staff and also into your clients and those that you work with. And equally, the opposite's true. If you're not confident, or you're negative, or you know yourself, whenever you're down, you pick up on that, and so do other folk. If you go into a restaurant or any other business and the staff are miserable, you can sense like a mood. You can tell. Well, that's the same for confidence, either positive confidence or negative confidence.
Yeah. I mean, if I think about confidence, it comes with experience, right? So like me as a vet, over the years, I became more and more confident. So and the more experience I had, and the more knowledge I had, actually, so that's a big thing. Just being able to read different situations that I was in, and every time I had experienced something, then I was like, okay, like I've got a reference now. Like I remember that case that I saw, whatever it was, and this is what I did. It was okay, and I think as vet rehabbers, that's one of the big things, and I'm going to share with you guys, vet rehabbers, like, I mean, even as a vet, like I can remember seeing cases. A case would come in to be referred to me for veterinary rehabilitation, and it was something that I'd never treated. I treated it as a vet, but not doing rehab. And I used to have these hot packs that I used to put in the microwave that I'd use to heat up the muscles before I did treatment. And I remember like basically saying, I'm just going to go heat up the hot pack. And I'd go and I'd quickly put it in the microwave, and then I'd run to my office and I'd get the like vet rehab Bible out, and I'd quickly go and I'd have a look and I'd think, how do I do this? How do I do this? And so like, that's one of the things, like when you've had experience in a case, and it was always when I haven't seen that particular case, it got thrown at me. I wasn't prepared, for it. And then the times that I've seen those cases, and the more I see a case, and the ones that I'd see often, then I'd be like, I got this, And even with the clients, it's just a different way in which I held myself. I was confident. And I think also, knowledge. So, I mean, this is one of the things that I do. So like I educate and help to support vet rehabbers in their continuing education, because I know how important it is. I know when you have that knowledge, it gives you the confidence to be able to be successful in practice and to be able to enjoy practicing. So I mean, you really have to, you have to have that experience. But is there any way to fast track that confidence? I mean, is there any way, or do we just have to do our time and get that experience?
So you have, much better than I could ever have, summed up beautifully the confidence part of the triangle I mentioned a second ago. Competence, or as I like to say, competence. I was told when I spoke at a recent conference that people were confusing when I was saying confidence and competence. So that's why I just started saying competence, because my accent or the way I speak was making it difficult. So you're absolutely right. With competence, the actual skill, the ability, the experience, part of that does come with time.
Yeah.
So in one breath, you cannot fast track that. You just have to do the hard work. That's why it's called work. However, like you were alluding to, Meg, it can be enhanced, it can be taught, it can be learned if you're willing to put in the work and the time. So of course, the stuff you do is fantastic. I guess there are lots of books out there. There are podcasts that we're on just now. There's conferences. There's a lot of the great work you do. So I think part of it is it just takes time, and you can't fast track it. But in the same breath, there are certain things if you're willing to invest the time and the money into. And of course, why is it you that's got to have the skill as the business owner? If you've got a team, you can maybe buy in the skills, or even on a temporary basis, it could be a consultant comes in for a few days and helps with a particular thing, or some other skill set that you don't have, or even experience, or a mentor, someone that's, maybe again 5-10 years ahead of you, not in a bad way, just that's where they are, who wants to maybe give back, whether it's free or you have to pay for that, but there may be a way to learn from other people who have been there and done it.
I love the idea of a mentor. Because, when I was chatting to you about, when you have a good day, when you've had some encouragement, and that's what a mentor does for you, because they encourage you. So when you when you have your highs, they're there to support you and encourage you and congratulate you. And when you have your lows, they're there to hold you up when you've had that low, you know. And so, yeah, encouragement is a big thing. Having somebody there to encourage you to do what you need to do and to just step out of your comfort zone a little bit, right?
Could I share a really personal story on that with you?
Please.
Anyone
Yes.
that's listening. It's quite funny, we're in this building where we are in sunny Scotland, or not so sunny Scotland. This very building, in fact, this very room is where Acorn started with a conversation 7 years ago. And how the conversation got started was, my previous business had just failed. I went to a very good university, got a very good degree in marketing, and after 9 months of my first business, it just didn't work. So I pulled the plug on it. It was Christmas time. I was miserable. I had no money to afford to buy presents for anyone. And I thought something has to change. But I just had my confidence was completely knocked. I felt like a complete failure. I couldn't actually leave my house for 2 weeks. I mean, genuinely, I just couldn't face the world. And during that time, there was someone who kept phoning me and kept emailing me and kept texting me to see if I was all right. And a lot of my friends did too. But this person in particular, I didn't really know too well. I knew a little bit through business, but not anything personal. His name's Jerry Alexander. And Jerry kept phoning me, asking for a coffee. And eventually, after like a week of trying, I said to him, I'm meeting for a coffee. And that's what led to us forming Acorn together. Acorn Enterprise was just Jerry's persistence. And he said to me something I'll never forget. He went, your business failed, Kallum. You haven't.
Yeah.
So I think all of us at certain times in our life need someone like a Jerry to reach out. It hopefully is not when you're in that dark a place or that negative a place, but sometimes you need like a guardian angel or a guardian Jerry just to look out for us and just say, do you know what? It didn't work out, but dust yourself off and please try again.
Yeah. You know, the thing is, and I think this is something that people maybe don't see in others. So, you know, Anae, our vet physio, wrote an awesome blog the other day, and she called it the iceberg effect. And when you look at somebody, you see them as, you know, which is the top of whatever you see above the surface, you know. And if you look at an iceberg, there's a very small section on the top, and there's a massive part underneath. And what you see at the top is somebody who is super confident and successful and got all these successful businesses. But what you don't see below is all the hard yards and all the failures, because in order for that to be able to form in the top there, the whole bottom had to be there. And so that is all the failures, and most people have failed in business. So I mean, I don't know anyone that is super successful or has a successful business that hasn't had something that has failed or has had some failures. And you're so right, it's not that you failed, it's that business or whatever you did. And so we just need to remember that. I mean, I've done loads and loads of things, and when I look back now, I think, what was I thinking trying to do that or make that product or do whatever, you know? And so, yeah, guys, that you vet rehabbers that are listening, just remember, like, it's okay to fail, and that's why we learn. I mean, I would not be the person that I am today if it wasn't due to all the failures that I've had. So every time I fail, I get down, like you know, like you were down in your house and feeling down the dumps about it. But then you pull yourself up and you say, hey, like, what did I learn from this? Like, what am I not going to do it again? And how I'm going to change direction next time I do something similar. So yeah, thanks for sharing that story.
A pleasure. And I think you're right. You know, success is a good teacher, but failure is a much better one. I think you learn more from your failures and the failures of others. And that's why mentoring or speaking to other folk in your space, other business owners, is so key, because your friends and family don't get it. And that's okay. Why would they? Why should they? So it's important to spend time with other people who get it. And I love the analogy of the iceberg there, or we have one, I don't know if it's just a UK thing, but they talk about the swan. So the swans looks very elegant on the surface. It's just serenely swimming along, but underneath its feet are going like crazy to stay afloat. And it's the same thing, right? You just don't know what's beneath the surface. But I think the biggest thing here is don't compare yourself.
Yeah.
And in this world of social media where everyone's rushing to do something just to put it on Instagram, we should actually focus on being the best version of ourselves for our sake, and not to have the best photo or the best post on Instagram. Easy to say on a podcast, difficult to do in practice, because we're all human and all want to do better, and everyone else looks like having the best life and succeeding in business and just living the life, whereas it's so important not to compare. So I'm now actively trying really hard not to compare and not to judge, which is another one which I'm really working on hard. Not that I'm a judgy person, I get that disclaimer in there, but I think it's so important not to compare against other people.
Yeah, I mean, those two things actually bring me to a topic, I mean, what is one of the reasons that, what actually holds us back? So, like when you are wanting to achieve something or do something, or say you have to do something in business, let's say, for example, for vet rehabbers, one of the things that they find really hard is to put themselves out there and go and promote their businesses. So go to a vet and talk about themselves and their practice. And, if I think about myself, I did it, and it was hard. It was really, really hard initially, and one of the things that was really hard was rejection. I remember going there and, the receptionist coming out and say, he doesn't want to see you. The vet doesn't want to see you. And, I mean, initially it was like, whoa, like, that's hectic, so like that fear of failure, fear of being rejected. And then the other thing is the fear of what people think about you. So you're talking about, judging, what are people saying about me? What are they thinking about me? And I mean, I can give lots of examples about this. So another thing is like going on a Facebook Live, or, putting yourself out there for business, because, in today's day, you have to put yourself out there. So you can't just sit and wait at your practice and hope that the clients are going to come. The clients aren't. They're only going to come when you put yourself out there and start sharing yourself and educating and giving them value, and them realizing, oh, wow, she can really help me. So yeah, I mean, I don't know what you think about how you handle that failure and, rejection and all those different ways in which that are holding you back.
That's a really great question again, Meg. I think you're right. Fear of failure, fear of judgment. I would even argue fear of success for some people, which isn't spoken about nearly enough. What if I actually make it? What if it goes really well? How do I cope? Can my brain deal with that?
Yeah.
But no, you're absolutely right. It's funny when you first start in business, your friends and family, because they're usually the first ones you speak to, are a bit like, what are you doing? Why do you keep putting yourself on Facebook, all these embarrassing videos? It's so cringe. So you have to always get past that. But you're right, long gone are the days where people come to you. It's all about if you're out there. But I think there's being out there, and then there's being out there in the right way with a bit of substance and delivering real value, like what you're doing through this podcast. Like, it's almost quite easy to have a podcast, because it's like technology is so cheap, it's so accessible, it's quite easy now to do. But actually, to make a really quality podcast is really difficult. I'm sure it takes a lot of prep, a lot of hard work, and that's true for anything. You need to invest in the best stuff, or at least invest in some stuff eventually. You need to think about what you're doing, look at where the gaps in the knowledge are for your customers, and also the gaps in the marketplace, and just really almost analyze where things are, and just look at where can I add value, where are the opportunities for me. But in terms of your point about putting yourself out there, of course it's difficult, it's embarrassing, it is challenging, but like you said earlier, with experience it becomes easier. You develop a process, you get better at time. I mean, a few years ago we did some videos for Acre Enterprise, and my first video now, I can't even watch it without cringing. It's so awful. And now our videos are really quite good, but it's like I was saying earlier, that took the doing it, that took the hard work, that took the going, and just getting on with it. Embracing the awkwardness, being cringy, just getting on with it. But also, I've paid to go to some video courses, so there's been an investment there in time and money. So it all feeds into this whole idea of just start. You're not going to be great when you start. That's okay, by the way. No one ever is. The difference between someone who makes it and doesn't is they keep on going when things aren't tough, when they feel self-doubt or the imposter syndrome or the fear of failure or fear of judgment. just keep going. Everyone feels the same way, but no one talks about it.
Yeah. I want to chat about the fear of failure. So I mentor a few of the vet rehabbers, and there's one vet rehabber, that doesn't really do anything in her business. So she's got a business that's ticking over, and she sort of just holds back. And she actually knows what to do. She's got the skills to do it, and she just doesn't know why. And so we had to really dive deep into like why is she not doing anything? Like, she's got time, and she knows what to do, she's got the plan, but she just always finds something else to do instead of going and marketing her practice or trying to grow her business. And it basically went down to like, well, if she tries, so like now she can just say like to her family and to her friends, I didn't really put my whole into it if it doesn't work. But if she puts her whole into it and then it doesn't work, then she's failed. So it's sort of like she was like sabotaging herself in a way, because she was just like, I'm just not going to do this because this is safe. This is a safe place for me to be. I can just say, well, I didn't put my whole into it, and that's why it didn't work out. Is that something that you experience in other professions?
I don't think I've experienced that exact situation. Although the first part of it about being a busy fool or looking busy, I've certainly experienced lots of that. Like when you first start a business, you're so busy, there's lots to do. So people do the easy or the fun things, the creative things like, oh, I'll get business cards because, of course, if I don't have business cards, then I'm not really in business. Oh, I'll get a website because I need to have a website, and I'll get flyers done. No one cares, right? Go and get some sales.
Yeah.
Your business will not fail because your business cards are not done. Your business will fail, though, if you don't have any sales.
Yeah.
So we've experienced that. A lot of that is procrastination. A lot of that is lack of confidence because it's so overwhelming. Because what do I actually do? Oh, I'll just be busy by getting business cards and doing emails. You can still make sales here and now without having business cards. So I can relate to that part of the question you asked. The second part about people not putting their all in, I don't think I've ever come across it before, which isn't maybe the best answer, but it's the truth. I don't think I can really answer that bit, I'm afraid, Meg.
Yeah, I mean, she's just really scared. I think it's maybe fear of succeeding, or, I mean, just, it's more fear of not succeeding, but maybe she's scared of both. She just rather just stay in the safe zone, not put herself out there a little bit. Yeah, interesting one. So I think, like thinking about her, it has to come down to that clarity. That's the one thing, is because you got to actually focus. Like when you're talking about the busy fool, it's all about focus, right? Focusing on the things that are actually going to have impact on your business. And when you don't have clarity, you're not doing that. You're just doing this and that, and but before you know it, the week's over.
Yeah, I think the clarity piece is so important, and we talk about this quite a lot at Acorn Enterprise. It's so important that you know where you're going, because if you don't know where you're going, you'll end up anywhere. And we have this saying that it's a bit like going to the airport with your bags packed and your passport and saying, okay, take me somewhere. That's not usually how it works. You always have a destination in mind. You want to go somewhere, and then you work out how you get there. In business and indeed life is the same. You have to have a destination. You have to know where you're going, or else you spend 5-10 years going to the wrong place or not the right place. So what does it look like, and how do you do that? A big piece of that is a lot of soul searching, a lot of self-discovery. It's almost like you have to unlearn certain things. So if I explain that, certainly in the UK, when we're asked at high school or college or university, what do you want to do when you grow up or when you graduate, we're usually expected or even conditioned to answer with a job title. And I don't think anyone's ever expected to say, oh, I want to have my own business. So we always have to unlearn that, the fact that you can have your own business, but it's actually broader than that. Instead of answering with a job title, almost like a life title of, okay, I want to go traveling 4 months a year, or I want to spend as much time with my kids as I can, or I want to have a business that just takes care of itself. I pop in maybe once or twice a month. So by knowing that, the sort of life that you want to have, and everyone's got their own aspirations and their own personal values and their own goals, and that's really, really cool. I think you have to know what yours is. So that's the first step, is to work out what sort of life do I want to have. And by the way, it's never too late to start this. Never too late to start, but you have to start at some point. So work it out and then work backwards. That's the destination. How do we get there? Well, for example, if you want to spend every school holiday with the kids, if you've got them, which would be 12 weeks of the year, at least in the UK anyway, most jobs would not allow that. They would not allow you to take off 12 weeks. So then you start to look at, okay, I probably have to have my own business. But of course, a lot of businesses are the same. If you're not working for 12 weeks, that's a lot of money you need to make in the rest of the year to cover that. Plus, if you're away for 12 weeks, people might forget about you. Are you keeping up with the market and the trends? So it's almost like, what type of business would let you take 12 weeks off from both a time and a money point of view? So do some soul searching, what you want to do. Then start looking at vehicles, and look at, by vehicles I mean business types. What sort of businesses could you have that would let you do that? And then break it down into almost like a 5-year plan, because 5 years is quite a long time, but it's also quite a short time. It's enough time to start something and make a really radical career or life changes and really make them happen. And then break down that 5-year plan into 1 year, 1 month, 1 week, 1 day. And the most important part of that whole process is the constant review. So reviewing your plan every week, every month, every year. Now, some of the listeners might be thinking, God, that sounds like a lot of work. Well, it is, but it's the right kind of work. It doesn't have to take forever, but what I tend to do is maybe once every month, every 6 weeks, I literally have a meeting with myself, which sounds completely mad to most people, but that's okay. I have a meeting with myself. It's in my diary. I never cancel on myself. Even if a customer wants to see me on that day and that time, I always say, nope, sorry, I have a meeting. It's the most important meeting you'll have every month. It's with yourself. And in that meeting, you review your progress, your cash flow. Are you happy? A really important question that goes beyond work again. That's your life. Are you happy? And it's in those meetings you almost course correct. So am I on schedule this month? Am I where I said I would be? If the answer is yes, okay, what things do I keep doing? And what things do I say no to? If the answer is no, if you're off course, a month's a good enough time to get back on course again, better than a year. And then you'd be, okay, what went wrong this month, or what didn't go quite right? How can I make sure next month this doesn't happen again? And I read a really good example once. If a plane takes off from California and it's heading towards New York City, even if it's just 1 degree off course for the whole plane journey, it ends up something like 300 miles away from New York City. And that's over the space of 5 hours or so, or 10 hours, whatever the journey is. So that's just being 1 degree off course. Imagine in our lives, if we're never reviewing this and we're never going back on track, how off course we could be. And that's quite scary. And they reckon that most planes are off course 70 or 80% of the time of the journey. And the pilot's job is to constantly course correct the whole way through the plane journey. And for business owners and for rehabbers, I think it's so important is to always course correct. So have that meeting with yourself once a month. Have that introspection, that soul searching, and that course correction. It's the most vital and important thing. And that will let you have clarity. And when you have clarity, you start to have confidence, because you can say yes and no with certainty. And the very quick last thing on this is, have you ever noticed that folk with confidence, they can answer questions very quickly? And it's those sort of special questions in business about, do we go into this market or launch this product or do this new thing? Those are what we call opportunities if they move you towards your goal, your 5-year goal. However, if they take you away from your goal, they're called distractions. Someone with confidence and with clarity knows the difference between a distraction for them and an opportunity for them, and also can therefore say yes to the right thing and no to the right thing.
Yeah, I mean, this is so, so important. And if I look back to when I had my vet rehab practice, I mean, you sort of just fall into practice, actually.
Yeah.
And, looking at vet rehab is you actually have a choice. You can either just be sort of a consultant and you're a one-man band and basically work for yourself. You could be mobile. Generally, once you get a brick and mortar type of practice, you need more people because you need receptionists and cleaning people and all that. So if you're mobile, then you decide, okay, this is going to be for me long term. I just want to work for myself. I don't want to have staff. I'm all right that when I take leave, I'm not going to earn any money. So I know that I'm going to have to probably work more. I'm not going to be able to take large sections of leave, like massive holidays, because my practice won't be able to sustain itself if I'm not earning any money. And what happens, I think, is that generally we think the path is you start off like that and then you must go on to have a practice. You must go on to be an entrepreneur. And I call it like a freelancer and an entrepreneur, because like the freelancer is somebody who can either work for somebody else, maybe you consult for somebody else, or you work for somebody else, you're salaried, then everything's structured, or you are a mobile vet rehabber, and you don't have an opportunity that somebody else can take over from you or earn money while you're on holiday. And then you have the entrepreneur who has an idea of their life is going to be a little bit different. And that is what you're talking about now. Like, I want to be able to take holiday and still be able to earn money, or my practice and my patients still be treated. And so you have to decide what you're doing. And often sort of vet rehabbers they'll be the mobile practice, and they'll think, okay, now I need to take that next step. But they don't necessarily. They can choose to stay mobile, and that's how they can carry on. Or they can just decide to be the entrepreneur. And I remember, I was exactly that. Mobile, then went on to have the brick and mortar practice. And for probably at least 3 years, I didn't know where I was going at all. I had the practice, and that was it. I had the practice. And I remember there were people that would ask me to come speak here or to do this, and do you want this opportunity? And I just said yes, 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 yes to everything, because I thought, yeah, that's an opportunity. I can't let that down. That's an opportunity. I can't let that down. And the problem with that is, like you say, is that it doesn't, sometimes some of those things you're saying yes to is actually not taking you where you want to go. But if you don't know where you're going, you just keep saying yes. And then you're just all over the place, until I decided, okay, this is the type of practice I want. Okay, I want to have a practice. I want to have a vet physio. I want to have a team of people. I want to have a vet nurse. I want to have a hydrotherapist. I'm going to have this underwater treadmill, and all the things I decided, this is how it's going to be. And I want to be able to take leave, and there'll be people to be able to manage my patients and run my practice. And then I had this direction that I was going. And then when people started asking me stuff, I was thinking, well, no, because that's not really going to serve me. Like, I don't really want to do anything about grooming. That's not in my plan, So then when there were opportunities, I could say, no, that's not taking me in that direction. And, what I want to say to the vet rehab is it's also okay to change. So that was my plan. And it changed a little bit, and you can change it completely. So if you decide you want to go back, or it doesn't matter what you're doing, at least just know right now, today, where you are going and what you want. And in a month's time, if that changes, that's okay, because then you just change direction. And I love your analogy about the plane, and I actually use a different one. It's actually with like a GPS. And say you have to go and drop off something at someone's house that you've never been to before. This is how I say, because wherever you're going, it's somewhere you haven't been, okay? You can either put it in the GPS and say, right, I'm going to this house, to this address, and it'll take you the shortest route possible. Or you can be arrogant and say, I know where that house is, I'm just going to drive there. And you just drive there. And then, and this has happened to me, where you're like, oh, now is it this road? And then you're going around in circles, and you're looking, and it takes you like 5 minutes longer, and you drove so much longer. And then eventually you do get there, but it takes you much longer. And that's what happened with me, because I didn't have that direction. I didn't have that goal. I didn't know where I was going until I actually sat down and said, this is where I'm going. And then those decisions about everything were a whole lot easier.
Yeah. I'm going to steal your GPS story. That's a really good one.
Yeah.
And I think, and you can have my plane story. That's a fair trade.
The last thing I wanted to chat about was, you mentioned imposter syndrome. And
yeah.
I think, when I think about confidence in business and in vet rehab therapy, I think there are two things. There's one is confidence in running the business, and then there's confidence in your ability to be able to treat your patients. So there's actually two different areas, where there's confidence. And I think that, imposter syndrome is something that I think vets and vet rehabbers really, really struggle with. I mean, that's like a different level, right, of self-doubt.
Imposter syndrome. It's a really interesting dynamic. There's two levels to it. You were just saying there. There's the business side and then the patient side. A lot of it comes down to self-belief. How do you be confident when you're not feeling it, or sometimes you just doubt your abilities. But again, like we've already said through this conversation, there are a few strategies you can do that they work. Almost the best thing is, because confidence is so emotional, so dynamic, ever-changing, a snapshot in time, it might just be that you're not feeling it. And that's one solution to that. However, if it's a more long-term thing, like imposter syndrome, whereby maybe it lasts for days or weeks or years even, there's maybe other strategies there. But the key is nipping it in the bud and almost like removing the emotion and start looking at, okay, what works? So visualize where you want to be. I've already said that. Take a deep breath and think about, okay, think of all the good things that I've done. Almost like one thing we like to say is almost like a self-audit. So on a bit of paper, quite literally write down all the things you're good at. And this is not the time to be shy or have humility. It's almost like be a little bit arrogant and really write down, what are you good at? So for example, I'm good at X, 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 Y, Z, whatever it is. But also on the other bit of paper, write down what you're not so good at and be really honest. So for me, it's like numbers, numbers and numbers. So luckily my business partner is quite good at numbers. So we're a good complement that way.
Yeah.
So a skills audit is like removing the emotion from it all and on a bit of paper, looking at what you're good at and what you're not so good at. And then you can focus on what you're good at. And then there's various debates. And Meg, we even touched on during this chat about, okay, you can build on your strengths by investing in time and money with courses, with the work you do, with podcasts, with lots of good stuff. How about the weaknesses or the limitations? Well, we've already discussed that. You can certainly do courses or training for that. But of course, that'll take time and money. If it's a more urgent thing you need to solve a lot quicker, you can buy in skills. You can maybe with your current team, you can get them to do stuff. One really important point I'd like to stress though is, if you don't have confidence in a particular area, or you just don't feel confident hiring staff or giving your existing staff more autonomy or more ability isn't always the right answer. It's how you handle that process. Like, you can't just pick up your problem or the thing you're not good at and dump it on someone else's desk and walk away and say, okay, that's now your responsibility. That's more of abdication than delegation. You can't just do that. You have to manage that process well and make sure it's fair and they understand why they're doing it and they're able, because at the end of the day, you're the business owner. So even if they're not very good at it either, although it's off your desk for the time being, it will still come out to bite you eventually. So you got to be very wary of that.
Yeah, so I think really concentrating on your strengths, and from what I understand of imposter syndrome, it is like a chronic situation where you just really have severe self-doubt and lack of confidence, right? It's something that, it's not like you have one day where you're good and you're feeling confident and the next day you're not. It's like you really feel like you're a fraud in whatever you're doing. And I know that this is a problem in vets especially. So it's quite well documented, and there are a lot of people that are helping vets that feel, once they've qualified, they feel like they're not qualified enough, or they don't have enough knowledge, and I think about myself, when I'm lacking in confidence, I look at sort of like, what am I feeling what is the reason that I'm not feeling confident? And is it because of a strength or is it because of a weakness? And it's usually a weakness. And I say to myself, like, you're not good at that. Like, so stop being so hard on yourself, and I'll always try and then improve that weakness until I get to a point where I'm like, okay, like this is just not my thing. And then I will delegate it. I'll just say. But obviously, as a vet rehabber, there's certain things you can delegate and there's certain things you can't. So there's certain things that you actually, this is your job description. You have to take responsibility for. But you can obviously get other people. You can employ, if it's your own business, you can get other therapists to come in and to help you and to support you. And I think that's really where, I often talk about the vet rehab team. It's a team of people. There's a vet physio, there's a hydrotherapist, there's a vet nurse. Everyone is together, and it's a support. And we all have different skills, and all the skills come together for the best outcome for our patients. This has been such a great chat. So is there something that you can leave our vet rehabbers with? Maybe like 3 points that they can take home now, that they can just think about and just action to, especially if they have a day where they're lacking in confidence.
That's a good way to end, I think. However, I'm going to be cheeky, if I may, and also maybe give a bonus little tip as well before we launch into the 3 actions. It's a very quick story, if I may. I'm going to look at a completely different industry. So imagine we've got 2 garages. Okay, there's 2 business owners that own a garage each. And because I'm not good at numbers, I've already said that. Let's just say, make it very easy. The first garage owner charges £5 to get your car fixed. And the second garage owner charges £100 to get your car fixed. Okay, so if we go back to the first one for a second, because it's £5, they need to do 20 jobs to make the same money as the other garage owner has to do in 1 job at £100. Because it's £5, it's the cheapest place in town. They're going to get the most smashed up, dirty, horrible cars that need the most work. So not only do you need to do 20 jobs to make the same money, it's going to be harder work, it's going to be longer work, it's going to be nastier work, and you just won't enjoy it. Meanwhile, our other friend who owns the other garage at £100, they have to do 1 job at £100 to make the same money as our other friend. They're probably going to have generally a nicer experience. The cars won't maybe need as much work. The customer expectation will be slightly different there. And it's all about, okay, as the business owner, you get to choose which garage you want. And I'm not here to belittle or dismiss anyone's aspiration level. I think that's what makes it so exciting, is it's your business for a reason. You make the decisions about, like you were saying a minute ago, about which staff to hire, what prices to charge, and all these sort of really cool marketing decisions about how to promote your company. You are both the player of the game and almost like the rule setter, which is a really unique and cool position to be in, and we forget that sometimes. My question back to you is, which garage would you like to own, and how can you almost think about that story in your practice? So that's a very quick story, just to think about, okay, which garage do I want to own? And you don't need to have either extreme, maybe somewhere in the middle, but just think about, okay, which garage feels more right for me?
Yeah.
And then to answer your actual question, I tend to go off on tangents, which is why I'm terrible at podcasts now. The 3 key actions then that I would urge you to look at, it goes back to the triangle I mentioned there, the confidence triangle with the K, the clarity piece, conviction, and competence. And in terms of an action point from each one of those very quickly, I've already mentioned a few of them throughout this podcast, Meg. Clarity, have that meeting with yourself once a month or every 6 weeks. I really think about, where do I want to be in the next 5 years? Life plans are great, but it's almost like too foggy to see even past 5 years. And to some of us, 5 years might feel like a bit of a stretch. However, try really hard to look at 5 years and break it down into baby steps into the next month, the next week, the next day. So really have that meeting with yourself and work out, what sort of garage do I want to have? What sort of practice do I want to have? What sort of work do I want to do? And just as important, what work do I not want to do? Because you're allowed to say no to opportunities, as you said earlier, Meg. It's so important. So that meeting's the first thing. Point number 2 is almost take a step back and think about all the good things you've done. You said earlier, taken 6 years maybe or more to get to where you are. A lot of studying, a lot of hard work, a lot of late nights, a lot of sacrifices. Almost like pat yourself on the back. We're so guilty as business owners of beating ourselves up in all aspects. And it's almost like whenever we have this massive monster, this massive hurdle, this big job that we just can't do, we're very guilty, aren't we, of when it's done, we look for the next fire to put out, rather than saying, that was a good job putting that fire out. You know, how many of us, when you do create your first website, it's a big job, isn't it? Like the logo, the content, the pictures, all that stuff. And then when you get it, you just move on to the next task without saying, well done, Kallum. That was a lot of hard work. You did really well with that website. So really just think about what you've achieved to this point and just think about all the good things you've done, all the people you've helped, everything you've done, all the good work you've done and how you've got here. And then the third piece, which is related on the competence side of things, is that skills audit I mentioned. On that bit of paper, write down all the things you're good at, all your strengths, and on the back of it, all of your weaknesses. And I have a coach that I work with, an executive coach called Stuart, and he differentiates between weaknesses and limitations, which is another angle to this. So a weakness is something you're not good at, like numbers for me. A limitation is something that literally stops you doing the job. So I would argue that numbers are not a limitation for me, but they are a weakness. They're not my natural skill. They're not a passion of mine. However, I can do them if need be. It just takes me a long time to do, whereas a business partner can do them very easily. They don't stop me doing the job, but they do slow me down. A limitation is something that completely stops me, and that's a different conversation altogether. So really have that honest chat with yourself, the skills audit. Where am I good at? What am I not good at? And look at how you can plug in those gaps.
I like that. So strengths, weaknesses, and limitations.
Yeah.
Because yes, I mean, limitations are things that you really don't have enough knowledge in whatever it is to either be able to treat a case, or if it's in business, you don't have enough knowledge to be able to market your business or whatever.
Yes.
And so those limitations you really, really need to work on. You can't delegate those. You got to get some knowledge. You can get help. You can get assistance.
Yeah.
But you got to know something about that, you know. Yeah, I love it. Kallum, thank you so much. I could chat to you for hours about this. I've loved our conversation.
Likewise.
It's been awesome.
Me too. It's been great, Meg.
Thanks so much. And for those of you that are interested about Acorn Enterprises, we'll put the URL in the description. So thanks so much, Kallum, for your time. Really appreciate it.
Thank you again. I really enjoyed it.
Cheers.
Vet Rehabbers, for more information on how to take your career to the next level, go to www.onlinepethealth.com. Please don't forget to subscribe to my podcast so you'll get notified. I'm here every single week talking to vet rehabbers from all over the world, learning, and I would love you to join me. Hope you have an awesome day further. Cheers for now.